In a quiet corner of the galaxy, far from Earth and its bustling cities, an alien alliance called the Vorthons was fighting a bitter war. The enemy, a terrifying race of insect-like creatures known as the Zenari, sought to destroy all non-insectoid life. For years, the Vorthons had struggled to hold their ground, but hope was fading. Their resources were dwindling, and every battle seemed harder than the last. Commander Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the glowing screens before him. His sharp eyes caught something unusual, a strange energy signal appearing near their home planet. It wasn't like anything he had seen before. None of their databases recognized it. Whatever it was big, metallic, and moving slowly through space. Ryan leaned closer to the monitor, his brow furrowed in thought. Could this be some new Zenari weapon? He muttered under his breath, but deep down, he doubted it. This signal felt different. Meanwhile, light years away, Captain Laura Bennett sat in the command chair of the U.S. Vanguard, humanity's first deep space exploration vessel. The Vanguard was sleek and powerful, designed to push the boundaries of what humans could achieve. Laura adjusted her uniform, feeling the weight of responsibility on her shoulders. She had been chosen for this mission because of her skill and calm demeanor, but nothing could have prepared her for what happened next. The ship shuddered slightly as it exited hyperspace, emerging into a region of space no human had ever visited. Before anyone could react, alarms blared across the bridge. Lieutenant Kevin Foster, seated at the sensor station, called out urgently, "Captain, we're surrounded. Dozens of ships, strange, angular vessels with glowing blue markings, were closing in fast." Laura clenched her fists, trying to stay calm. "Raise shields," she ordered. "Hail them. Let's find out who they are." But before the crew could make contact, another group of ships appeared. These were horrifying, massive, insectoid shapes that bristled with weapons. They opened fire immediately, unleashing bolts of green energy that tore through space. The Vanguard rocked violently as explosions lit up the void around them. "Evasive maneuvers," Laura shouted, gripping the arms of her chair. Her heart raced as she watched the chaos unfold on the main screen. Just when it seemed like all was lost, the first group of ships, the ones with the glowing blue markings, fired back. Their weapons were precise and devastating, driving the insectoid attackers away. Laura let out a shaky breath, realizing they had just been saved by complete strangers. A voice crackled over the comms, speaking in halting but understandable English. "This is Commander Ryan Carter of the Vorthon Alliance. Identify yourselves." Laura hesitated for a moment, then replied, "This is Captain Laura Bennett of the U.S. Vanguard, representing Earth. We mean no harm. We detected unusual disturbances in space-time and came to investigate." There was a long pause before Ryan responded. "Earth? Your people have never ventured this far before. How did you get here?" As the two commanders exchanged cautious words, both sides studied each other carefully. The Vorthons were amazed by the advanced design of the human ship, while Laura's crew marveled at the aliens' technology. Despite their shared curiosity, there was an underlying tension. Neither side fully trusted the other. Still, Ryan invited the humans to accompany them to a nearby outpost for further discussion. Laura agreed, sensing that this meeting might change everything, for better or worse. Unbeknownst to either side, this encounter would mark the beginning of a chain of events that would alter the course of the galaxy forever. The journey to the Vorthon outpost was tense but quiet. The U.S. Vanguard followed the alien ships, its crew watching every movement on the screens with a mix of awe and unease. Captain Laura Bennett stood at the center of the bridge, her arms crossed as she studied the sleek, angular design of the Vorthon vessels. They moved with precision, their glowing blue markings pulsing faintly in the darkness of space. Laura couldn't help but feel a sense of wonder mixed with caution. These beings were not human, and though they had saved her ship, she knew little about them. Commander Ryan Carter, aboard his flagship, watched the human vessel closely. He found himself equally fascinated. The Vanguard's design was unlike anything he had ever seen. Smooth curves, metallic surfaces, and an array of weapons that looked both advanced and deadly. It was clear these humans were capable of defending themselves, even in unfamiliar territory. Still, Ryan couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to their arrival than just coincidence. Why had they come so far? And what did it mean for the war? When they arrived at the outpost, Laura and her senior officers were invited aboard the Vorthen station. As they stepped through the airlock, they were greeted by towering, humanoid figures with pale skin and sharp features. Their eyes glowed faintly, giving them an otherworldly appearance. Laura tried to keep her expression neutral, but she could see the nervousness in her crew's faces. Lieutenant Kevin Foster whispered, "They're different," his voice barely audible. Laura nodded slightly, signaling him to stay calm. Ryan led them to a large conference room, where holographic displays floated above a circular table. He gestured for Laura and her team to sit, then began explaining the situation. "We are fighting a war against the Zenari," he said, pointing to a map of star systems marked with red zones. "They seek to exterminate all non-insectoid life. Our forces have been holding them back, but it has been difficult." His tone was measured, but there was no mistaking the wariness behind his words. Laura listened intently, her mind racing. She had read about wars in history books, but this was something else entirely. Entire civilizations were being wiped out, entire planets reduced to ash. When Ryan finished speaking, she leaned forward and asked, "Why did you save us?" "We're strangers to you." Ryan hesitated before answering. "Your ship is powerful, Captain Bennett. More advanced than ours in some ways. Perhaps your people can help us turn the tide." The idea hung in the air like a challenge. Laura glanced at her crew, seeing the weight of responsibility reflected in their eyes. Could humanity really step into a galactic conflict? Back on Earth, such decisions would take months of debate. Here, light years away, the choice rested on her shoulders. She took a deep breath and replied, "I'll need time to think about this. My mission was exploration, not warfare." As the meeting ended, tensions simmered beneath the surface. Not everyone among the Vorthens trusted the humans. General Marcus Hale, a stern figure with cold eyes, pulled Ryan aside after the humans left. "You're making a mistake," he said sharply. "These outsiders don't belong here. Bringing them into our war will only make things worse." Ryan frowned but didn't argue. He understood the risks, but he also saw potential in the humans. If nothing else, their arrival had given him hope, a rare feeling in these dark times. Back on the Vanguard, Laura gathered her officers for a private discussion. "This isn't what we signed up for," she admitted, pacing slowly. "But if we walk away now, we might never get another chance to learn about the galaxy or protect Earth if the Zenari find us." Kevin spoke up, his voice steady despite his earlier nerves. "Captain, we've got the firepower to make a difference. Maybe this is why we're here." Laura nodded slowly, her resolve strengthening. She still wasn't sure if joining the fight was the right decision, but one thing was certain. Humanity's presence in the stars had just become undeniable. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same again. The next morning, Laura and her crew were summoned back to the Vorthen outpost. This time, the atmosphere was heavier, more serious. The Vorthens had spent the night analyzing data from the Vanguard systems, and their findings left everyone uneasy. Commander Ryan Carter stood at the head of the conference table, his glowing eyes fixed on Laura. "Your ship is impressive," he began, his tone measured but firm. "But its presence here raises questions. How did you develop such advanced technology? And why did you come so far from your home?" Laura hesitated before answering. She knew the truth might sound unbelievable. "Our scientists have been working for decades to understand space travel," she explained. "We built the Vanguard to explore, not to fight. As for why we're here," she paused, choosing her words carefully. "We detected strange disturbances in space-time near Earth. They seemed artificial, like something was manipulating the fabric of reality. We came to investigate. Ryan exchanged a glance with General Marcus Hale, who looked skeptical. Manipulating space-time, Hale repeated, his voice sharp. That sounds far-fetched. Laura didn't flinch. It's true, she said firmly. And now that I've seen your war, I think it's connected. Maybe the Zenari are behind it. At that moment, Dr. Sarah Miller, the Vanguard's chief scientist, stepped forward. She carried a small tablet displaying complex readings. While we were fighting off the Zenari ships earlier, she explained, our sensors picked up traces of subspace interference. It matches the patterns we've been tracking near Earth. Ryan's expression darkened. If the Zenari are destabilizing subspace, they could collapse entire star systems. Millions would die. The room fell silent as the weight of Sarah's words sank in. Laura felt a chill run down her spine. She had known the stakes were high, but this revelation made everything even more urgent. If the Zenari weren't stopped, no one, not even Earth, would be safe. Ryan broke the silence first. There's something else you should know, he said, his voice low. He activated a holographic display showing blueprints of a massive weapon. This is Project Eclipse. It's a prototype designed to collapse subspace fields. We believe it can disable the Zenari network and end the war. Laura studied the design, impressed by its complexity. Why haven't you used it yet? She asked. Ryan sighed. It requires precise coordination and trust. Our fleets aren't always reliable, and the risks are enormous. Using it incorrectly could destroy us all. He looked directly at Laura. But with your ship's speed and targeting systems, we might finally have a chance. The idea was tempting, but Laura knew it wasn't a decision she could make lightly. Back on the Vanguard, she gathered her senior officers to discuss the proposal. Lieutenant Kevin Foster was eager to help. Captain, we've got the tools they need. If we don't step up, who will? He argued. Dr. Sarah Miller nodded in agreement. This isn't just about the Vorthons anymore. If the Zenari keep destabilizing subspace, Earth could be next. But not everyone shared their enthusiasm. Ensign David Grant, one of the youngest members of the crew, spoke up hesitantly. What if we're walking into a trap? What if the Vorthons are using us? His question hung in the air, unanswered. Laura understood his fear. Trusting strangers in the middle of a galactic war wasn't easy, especially when so much was at stake. As the debate continued, Laura found herself torn. On one hand, helping the Vorthons could save countless lives, including those on Earth. On the other hand, joining the fight meant risking everything. The Vanguard was humanity's first step into the stars, a symbol of hope and exploration. Could she turn it into a weapon of war? That night, Laura sat alone in her quarters, staring out at the endless expanse of space. The Vorthons were counting on her, and Earth's future depended on her decision. She thought about the people back home, the families, the children, who had no idea how close they might be to danger. Finally, she made up her mind. Humanity couldn't stand by and do nothing. They had to act, even if it meant stepping into the unknown. When she returned to the outpost the next day, Laura faced Ryan with determination in her eyes. We'll help you, she said firmly. But we do this together. No secrets, no lies. Ryan nodded, relief washing over his face. For the first time in years, he allowed himself to feel a glimmer of hope. Together, humans and Vorthons began planning their next move, a bold strike against the Zenari that would change the course of the war forever. Back on Earth, news of the U.S. Vanguard's encounter with the Vorthons spread quickly. The images and data sent back by Captain Laura Bennett sparked both excitement and fear across the planet. President Alan Mitchell called an emergency meeting in a secure room beneath the United Nations headquarters. Around the table sat military leaders, scientists, and diplomats, all trying to make sense of what had happened. Admiral Daniel Brooks, a seasoned officer with graying hair, leaned forward and spoke first. We've got a decision to make, he said, his voice heavy with urgency. "Do we stay out of this war, or do we step in?" Dr. Emma Collins, a soft-spoken xenobiologist, raised her hand cautiously. "If what Captain Bennett says is true, if the Zenari are destabilizing subspace, then Earth isn't safe. We need to act now, before it's too late." Her words hung in the air, and the room grew quiet. Everyone knew she was right. If the Zenari discovered Earth, humanity would be defenseless. But not everyone agreed. Senator Lisa Harper, a politician known for her cautious approach, shook her head. "We're talking about joining the Galactic War," she argued. "We don't know these aliens. What if they're using us? What if this is a trap?" Her concerns were valid, but they didn't change the reality of the situation. Humanity couldn't afford to ignore the threat. President Mitchell listened carefully to both sides before speaking. "This isn't just about us," he said, his tone firm. "It's about survival, for Earth, and for every species out there fighting the Zenari. But the final decision rests with Captain Bennett. She's on the front lines, and she knows better than any of us what's at stake." Meanwhile, aboard the Vanguard, Laura felt the weight of that responsibility pressing down on her. The Vorthons had shared their plans for Project Eclipse, and while the weapon offered hope, it also carried immense risk. Using it incorrectly could destroy entire fleets, including theirs. Laura spent hours poring over the blueprints with Dr. Sarah Miller, trying to understand every detail. "It's risky," Sarah admitted, pointing to a section of the design. "If the timing is off by even a second, the subspace collapse could spiral out of control." Laura nodded, her mind racing. She trusted her crew, but the stakes were unimaginable. Lieutenant Kevin Foster interrupted her thoughts, entering the room with a determined look. "Captain, the Vorthons are ready to move forward. They're waiting for your answer." Laura sighed, rubbing her temples. "Tell them we'll do it," she said finally. "But only if we work as one team. No secrets, no shortcuts." When Laura informed Ryan of her decision, he looked relieved but wary. "You're taking a big risk, Captain," he said, his glowing eyes locking onto hers. "But I promise you, we'll honor your trust." Together, they began coordinating their forces, combining human and Vorthon strategies to prepare for the upcoming battle. As the days passed, tensions rose among the Vorthons. General Marcus Hale still opposed the alliance, believing it would weaken their position in the long run. He met privately with a group of high-ranking officers, voicing his concerns. "The humans are unpredictable," he warned. "They could abandon us the moment things get tough." His words found support among some, sowing seeds of doubt within the Vorthon leadership. Unbeknownst to Ryan and Laura, Hale took matters into his own hands. He leaked information about Project Eclipse to a rival faction within the Vorthon government, hoping to sabotage the plan. The betrayal created chaos, dividing the Vorthons just as the Zenari launched a massive attack on their homeworld. Caught off guard, the Vorthons scrambled to defend themselves, their fleet split and unprepared. Laura watched the unfolding disaster from the Vanguard's bridge, her heart pounding. "We can't wait any longer," she said firmly. "Prepare for combat. We're going in." Her crew moved swiftly, manning their stations as the ship's engines roared to life. For better or worse, humanity was about to enter the fight, and nothing would ever be the same again. The battle for the Vorthon homeworld was chaos. The Zenari fleet descended like a swarm of locusts, their insectoid ships swarming the skies and unleashing waves of green energy bolts. Explosions lit up the atmosphere as cities burned below, and the once proud Vorthon defenses crumbled under the relentless assault. The U.S. Vanguard arrived in the midst of the carnage, its sleek form cutting through the void like a blade. Captain Laura Bennett gripped the arms of her command chair, her jaw clenched as she surveyed the devastation on the main screen. "This is it," she said quietly, her voice steady despite the storm raging around her. "Let's show them what we're made of." The crew sprang into action, their training kicking in as they prepared to face an enemy unlike anything humanity had ever encountered. Lieutenant Kevin Foster manned the weapons console, his fingers flying over the controls. "Targeting systems locked," he reported, his tone sharp with focus. "Ready to fire on your mark, Captain." Laura nodded, her eyes scanning the battlefield. The Zenari ships were fast and aggressive, darting unpredictably to avoid return fire. But the Vanguard had something they didn't: speed and precision. "Evasive maneuvers," Laura ordered. "Keep us mobile. We need to take out their lead ship. It's coordinating their attack." The helmsman obeyed, sending the Vanguard into a series of tight turns and sudden bursts of acceleration that left the Zenari weapons struggling to keep up. As the battle raged, Laura's tactical brilliance began to shine. She used the ship's superior agility to outmaneuver the enemy, slipping behind their lines to strike at vulnerable points. The plasma cannons roared to life, sending searing beams of energy tearing through the Zenari ranks. One by one, their ships exploded in flashes of light, their insectoid forms disintegrating under the relentless assault. Commander Ryan Carter watched from his flagship, his glowing eyes wide with astonishment. "She's incredible," he muttered to himself, shaking his head in disbelief. But the fight wasn't without cost. Ensign David Grant, stationed at the sensor array, called out urgently, "Captain, we've got multiple bogies closing in on our flank." Laura's heart skipped a beat as she turned to see a cluster of Zenari fighters breaking through the defensive line. "Divert power to shields," she commanded. "Kevin, prioritize those targets." The Vanguard shuddered violently as the enemy fire struck home, and alarms blared across the bridge. Smoke filled the air as circuits overloaded, but the crew held their ground. Then came the moment no one could have predicted. A massive Zenari cruiser loomed ahead, its weapons charging for a devastating shot aimed directly at the Vanguard. Laura's mind raced. "We can't take that hit," she said, her voice tight with urgency. Before anyone could respond, Ensign David Grant stepped forward. "I'll draw their fire," he said, his young face pale but determined. Without waiting for permission, he activated a decoy drone, sending it streaking away from the ship. The Zenari cruiser turned, firing at the drone instead. It bought the Vanguard precious seconds, but at a terrible price. A stray bolt of energy struck the drone too soon, and the explosion engulfed David's station. "David!" Laura shouted, rushing to his side. But it was too late. The young ensign lay motionless, his sacrifice buying the rest of the crew time to regroup. Tears welled in Laura's eyes, but there was no time to grieve. "Stay focused," she ordered, her voice cracking slightly. For him. With renewed determination, the Vanguard pressed forward, its crew fighting harder than ever. Under Laura's leadership, they managed to disable the Zenari flagship's defenses, allowing Ryan's forces to deliver the final blow. As the enemy fleet retreated, the battered remnants of the Vorthan fleet cheered, their voices echoing through the comms channels. The battle was won, but the cost weighed heavily on everyone. Back aboard the Vanguard, Laura stood alone on the observation deck, staring out at the damaged planet below. David's sacrifice haunted her, a reminder of the stakes they were fighting for. Humanity had proven itself in this battle, earning the respect of their newfound allies. But as she gazed at the stars, Laura knew this was only the beginning. The war was far from over, and the road ahead would be long and difficult. Still, she felt a flicker of hope. Together, humans and Vorthans had shown they could stand against the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, they could win. In the aftermath of the battle, the U.S. Vanguard limped back to a nearby Vorthan repair station. The ship's hull was scorched and dented, its systems strained from the intense fight. Despite the damage, there was a sense of quiet pride among the crew. They had faced an enemy far more advanced than anything Earth had ever encountered. And they had survived. Captain Laura Bennett walked through the corridors, checking on her team. She stopped at the engineering bay, where engineers worked tirelessly to fix the damaged systems. "How's it going?" she asked, her voice calm but firm. "It's tough, Captain," replied Chief Engineer Mike Dawson, wiping sweat from his brow. "But we'll get her running again. She's strong, just like her crew. Laura nodded, offering a small smile before moving on. Her steps slowed as she approached the memorial wall, where Ensign David Grant's name had been added. She paused, her hand resting lightly on the cold metal surface. "We won't forget you," she whispered softly. Meanwhile, Dr. Sarah Miller pored over data collected during the battle. In the chaos, the Vanguard sensors had picked up something unusual, a faint but unmistakable pattern in the Zenari energy signatures. It matched the subspace disturbances Laura had first detected near Earth. Sarah brought her findings to Laura immediately. "Captain, I think I know what the Zenari are doing," she said, pointing to the readings on her tablet. "They're using their weapons to destabilize subspace fields. If they keep this up, entire star systems could collapse." Laura's heart sank. The implications were staggering. If the Zenari succeeded, not only would the Vorthons be wiped out, but Earth itself could be destroyed. "We need to stop them," Laura said firmly. "If destabilizing subspace is their goal, then Project Eclipse might be our only chance." At the same time, Commander Ryan Carter shared his own concerns with Laura. He explained that Project Eclipse, while promising, required perfect timing and coordination between human and Vorthon forces. Any mistake could result in catastrophic failure. "We can do this," Ryan assured her, though his expression betrayed his doubts. "But it's going to take trust on both sides." Trust, however, was becoming harder to come by. Back on the Vorthon homeworld, General Marcus Hale continued to sow discord. His betrayal had already caused division, and now whispers of rebellion spread among certain factions within the Vorthon military. Some believed allying with humans made them weaker, while others feared the risks of using Project Eclipse. Tensions boiled over during a council meeting, where arguments erupted over whether to proceed with the plan. Laura watched the chaos unfold from the sidelines, feeling the weight of responsibility pressing down on her. She knew the Vorthons were divided, but abandoning them wasn't an option. Humanity had stepped into this war for a reason, to protect Earth and ensure its survival. Turning back now would mean leaving the galaxy at the mercy of the Zenari. Determined to move forward, Laura met privately with Ryan later that evening. "We don't have time for doubt," she told him bluntly. "Every second we delay gives the Zenari another chance to destroy us all. Let's focus on what matters, stopping them." Ryan nodded, admiration flickering in his glowing eyes. "You're right," he said. "We'll make this work, for everyone." As plans for deploying Project Eclipse took shape, Laura gathered her senior officers for one final briefing. "This weapon is our best shot," she said, her voice steady. "But it's also dangerous. If we fail, it could cost us everything. Are you with me?" One by one, her crew nodded, their faces set with determination. Even in the face of uncertainty, they stood united. Unbeknownst to them, the Zenari were already preparing their next move. Deep within their territory, massive fleets assembled, ready to strike at the heart of the Vorthon alliance. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see who would emerge victorious, and whether humanity's arrival would tip the scales toward peace or destruction. The tension on the Vorthon homeworld reached a breaking point. General Marcus Hale's betrayal had fractured the leadership, and his leaked information about Project Eclipse ignited fierce debates among the Vorthons. Some argued that allying with humans was too risky, while others believed it was their only hope. Commander Ryan Carter found himself caught in the middle, trying to hold the alliance together. "We don't have time for this," he snapped during a heated council meeting. "If we don't act now, the Zenari will destroy us all." But Hale wasn't done causing trouble. He rallied a group of high-ranking officers who shared his distrust of humanity. Together, they staged a coup, seizing control of several key outposts and cutting off vital resources needed for Project Eclipse. The move plunged the Vorthons into chaos, leaving their fleet divided and vulnerable. Laura watched the turmoil unfold from the U.S. Vanguard, her frustration mounting. "They're tearing themselves apart," she said to Lieutenant Kevin Foster, her voice tight with anger. "How are we supposed to fight like this?" Before anyone could answer, alarms blared across the ship. The sensors detected a massive Zenari armada approaching, far larger than anything they had faced before. "It's an invasion force," Dr. Sarah Miller reported, her face pale as she analyzed the data. "They're heading straight for the Vorthan homeworld." Laura clenched her fists, her mind racing. The Zenari had chosen this moment to strike, knowing their enemies were weak and divided. Ryan contacted Laura immediately, his glowing eyes filled with urgency. "We need your help," he said, his voice strained. "If we lose the homeworld, the war is over." Laura didn't hesitate. "Tell me what you need us to do," she replied firmly. Ryan explained that the remaining Loyalist forces were preparing a desperate defense, but they couldn't hold the line without the vanguard. "We'll buy you time to activate Project Eclipse," Laura promised. "Just get it ready." As the battle began, the vanguard led the charge, its sleek form darting through the enemy ships with unmatched speed and precision. Laura's tactical mind shone once again as she directed her crew to exploit gaps in the Zenari formation. "Focus fire on their carriers," she ordered. "Take out their reinforcements." The plasma cannons roared to life, sending searing beams of energy slicing through the insectoid vessels. Explosions lit up space as the Zenari fleet reeled under the unexpected assault. But the odds were overwhelming. Wave after wave of Zenari fighters swarmed the battlefield, forcing the vanguard to fight harder than ever before. The ship's shields flickered dangerously low, and damage reports poured in from every section. "Captain, we can't keep this up much longer," shouted Chief Engineer Mike Dawson over the comms. Laura gritted her teeth, refusing to give up. "Hold steady," she commanded. "We just need a little more time." Amidst the chaos, Ryan worked feverishly to prepare Project Eclipse. The weapon was almost ready, but activating it required precise positioning and absolute trust between human and Vorthan forces. As the Zenari closed in, Ryan made a bold decision. "Laura, I need you to cover our retreat," he said. "Once we activate the weapon, there's no turning back." Laura nodded, understanding the risks. "Do what you have to do," she replied. "We'll hold them off." With seconds to spare, Ryan gave the order. A brilliant pulse of energy erupted from the Vorthan flagship, destabilizing the subspace fields around the Zenari fleet. Their ships faltered, caught in the collapsing field. Cheers erupted from the Loyalist forces as the tide of the battle turned. But the victory came at a cost. The strain of the weapon's activation left the Vorthan fleet crippled, and the vanguard barely escaped destruction. Back aboard her ship, Laura stared at the battered remains of the Zenari fleet, relief washing over her. They had won, but the scars of the battle ran deep. Ryan contacted her one last time, his voice heavy with gratitude. "You saved us," he said simply. "Thank you." Laura managed a small smile, though her heart ached for the losses they had endured. The war wasn't over, but for the first time, there was hope. Together, humans and Vorthans had proven they could stand against the darkness. And maybe, just maybe, they could win. The victory against the Zenari Armada was bittersweet. While the battle had been won, the cost weighed heavily on everyone involved. The Vorthan homeworld was scared, its cities in ruins and its people grieving the lives lost. General Marcus Hale's betrayal still lingered like a shadow over the Alliance, but his actions had forced the Loyalists to unite under Commander Ryan Carter's leadership. As for the humans, their arrival had proven pivotal, but it came at a price. The U.S. vanguard was battered, its crew exhausted from days of relentless fighting. Captain Laura Bennett stood on the bridge, her eyes fixed on the glowing screens that showed the remnants of the Zenari fleet drifting lifelessly in space. She felt a mix of pride and sorrow. Her crew had fought bravely, but the sacrifices they made haunted her. Ensign David Grant's name was etched into her thoughts, a constant reminder of what they had lost. Still, she knew there was no time to rest. The Zenari were weakened, but not defeated. If humanity and the Vorthans wanted to secure peace, they would need to strike at the heart of the enemy. Ryan approached Laura later that day, his expression grim but determined. "We've pushed them back," he said, leaning on the table in the conference room. "But this isn't over. If we don't finish them now, they'll rebuild. And next time, we might not be so lucky." Laura nodded, understanding the urgency. "What's the plan?" she asked. Ryan unfolded a holographic map of the galaxy, pointing to a distant system marked in red. "This is their capital," he explained. "It's heavily defended, but if we can destroy it, we'll cripple their ability to wage war." Laura studied the map carefully, her mind racing through the possibilities. Attacking the Zenari capital would be dangerous, perhaps even suicidal. But retreating now would only delay the inevitable. Humanity had stepped into this conflict, and turning back wasn't an option. "We'll do it," she said finally, her voice steady. "But we'll need every ship we can muster." Ryan agreed, promising to rally the remaining Loyalist forces. Together, they began preparing for the final assault. Back aboard the Vanguard, Laura gathered her senior officers for a briefing. "This is it," she said, pacing slowly as her crew listened intently. "The Zenari capital is our target. It won't be easy, but if we succeed, this war could end." Lieutenant Kevin Foster raised his hand hesitantly. "What about General Hale? What if he tries something again?" Laura sighed, acknowledging the risk. "We'll deal with him if we have to," she replied. "Right now, our focus has to be on the mission." As the fleet assembled, tensions ran high. Some Vorthans still doubted the humans, while others questioned whether Project Eclipse could be trusted after its devastating effects in the last battle. But Ryan worked tirelessly to reassure them, emphasizing the importance of unity. "We've come too far to turn back now," he told his people. "Together, we can end this." When the day of the assault arrived, the combined human-Vorthan fleet moved as one, slipping through Zenari defenses with precision. Laura led the charge aboard the Vanguard, using its cloaking technology to sneak behind enemy lines. "Disable their shield generators," she ordered, her voice sharp with focus. The crew obeyed, targeting key systems that left the Zenari vulnerable. Explosions erupted across the battlefield as the Loyalist forces struck hard and fast. Finally, the moment came. Ryan activated Project Eclipse once more, collapsing the subspace fields around the Zenari capital. The massive structure crumbled under the strain, its destruction marking the end of the Zenari Empire. Cheers erupted across the fleet as the enemy surrendered, their will to fight broken. But Laura didn't celebrate. Standing on the observation deck, she stared out at the stars, reflecting on everything they had endured. Humanity had taken its first step into the galactic stage, and it had changed them forever. The road ahead would be long, but for now, there was hope. The fall of the Zenari capital marked a turning point in the war, but it didn't bring immediate peace. The galaxy was still scared by years of conflict, and rebuilding would take time. For the Vorthans, it meant uniting their fractured people and addressing the divisions caused by General Marcus Hale's betrayal. For humanity, it meant stepping fully into a role they had never anticipated. Allies and protectors in a vast, interconnected universe. Commander Ryan Carter stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the wreckage of the Zenari capital. His glowing eyes reflected both relief and exhaustion. The victory was undeniable, but it came with a heavy price. Entire planets had been lost, and countless lives had been sacrificed. "We've won," he said quietly to Laura, who stood beside him. "But at what cost?" Laura nodded, her expression somber. She understood the weight of his words. The scars of war wouldn't fade easily, for anyone. Back on Earth, President Alan Mitchell addressed the United Nations, sharing news of humanity's role in defeating the Zenari. The announcement sparked a mix of awe and fear among world leaders. Some celebrated the bravery of Captain Laura Bennett and her crew, while others worried about the implications of joining galactic politics. Admiral Daniel Brooks, standing beside the president, spoke firmly. "This isn't just about us anymore," he said. "Earth has shown itself capable of standing alongside other species. Now we must prepare for what comes next." Laura returned briefly to Earth to meet with the president and military advisors. They discussed plans to expand Earth's fleet and establish stronger ties with the Vorthons. Dr. Emma Collins, the xenobiologist, urged caution. "We're still learning about this galaxy," she reminded them. "We need to build trust, not just with the Vorthons, but with other species too." Her words resonated with Laura, who knew firsthand how fragile alliances could be. Meanwhile, Ryan worked tirelessly to heal the rifts within the Vorthon alliance. General Marcus Hale had been arrested for treason, but his actions had left deep wounds. Many Vorthons remained skeptical of humanity, questioning whether trusting outsiders was worth the risk. Ryan addressed his people directly, speaking through broadcasts across the galaxy. "The humans didn't have to help us," he said, his voice steady. "But they did. Together, we achieved something none of us could have done alone. That's what unity looks like, and that's how we'll move forward." As the weeks passed, human and Vorthon engineers collaborated to repair the damage inflicted during the war. The U.S. Vanguard underwent extensive repairs, its sleek form restored to its former glory. Chief Engineer Mike Dawson joked with his team, saying, "She's tougher than any of us thought." But even as the ship was rebuilt, Laura noticed subtle changes in her crew. They carried themselves differently now, proud but humbled, aware of the responsibility they bore as representatives of Earth. One evening, Laura joined Ryan aboard the Vorthon outpost for a private meeting. "What happens now?" she asked, sipping a cup of steaming tea provided by her hosts. Ryan smiled faintly. "Now we rebuild, and we learn to live together, not just as allies, but as friends." He paused, then added, "You've earned our trust, Laura. All of you have. That's no small thing." Laura felt a flicker of hope. Despite everything they had endured, the battles, the losses, the sacrifices, there was a sense of possibility in the air. Humanity wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. The galaxy was vast and full of challenges, but for the first time, Earth wasn't alone. As she gazed out at the stars, Laura realized that this was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be long and uncertain, but humanity had taken its first step into the cosmos. Whatever lay beyond, they would face it together, with courage, determination, and an unshakable belief in the power of unity. The galaxy was quieter now, but the echoes of war still lingered. The Zenari Empire had fallen, its insectoid ships reduced to drifting debris in the cold void of space. Yet for Captain Laura Bennett and Commander Ryan Carter, the fight wasn't truly over. There were wounds to heal, alliances to strengthen, and lessons to learn. Humanity's arrival in the stars had changed everything, and it was only the beginning. Laura stood on the observation deck of the U.S. Vanguard, her hands resting lightly on the railing as she stared out at the endless expanse of space. The ship hummed softly around her, a comforting reminder of how far they had come. From Earth's first steps into deep space to standing side by side with an alien race, humanity had proven itself capable of more than anyone had imagined. But Laura knew this was just the start. The galaxy was vast, filled with mysteries and dangers yet unseen. Ryan joined her moments later, his glowing eyes reflecting the faint light of distant stars. "You've done something remarkable, Laura," he said quietly. "Not just for us, but for your people. You've shown them what they're capable of." Laura turned to him, a small smile tugging at her lips. "We couldn't have done it without you," she replied. "This victory belongs to all of us." Together, they discussed the future. The Vorthons had begun rebuilding their homeworld, repairing cities, and restoring hope to their people. Humanity, meanwhile, was preparing for a new chapter. Back on Earth, President Alan Mitchell announced plans to expand the fleet, commissioning new ships modeled after the Vanguard. Scientists worked tirelessly to study alien technology, eager to understand the secrets of subspace and harness its power for peace rather than war. But progress wasn't without challenges. Some factions within the Vorthan alliance still doubted humanity's intentions, while others feared that allying with outsiders would weaken their position in the galaxy. Ryan addressed these concerns head-on, working to build trust between humans and Vorthans. He introduced cultural exchange programs, inviting human diplomats and scientists to visit Vorthan worlds while encouraging his own people to learn about Earth. "We're stronger together," he often reminded them. "That's how we'll survive." For Laura and her crew, life aboard the Vanguard became a delicate balance of exploration and diplomacy. They traveled to uncharted regions of space, mapping star systems and making contact with other species. Some welcomed them warmly, grateful for their role in defeating the Zenari. Others were cautious, wary of newcomers who had suddenly risen to prominence. Through it all, Laura remained steadfast, determined to prove that humanity could be a force for good. One evening, as the Vanguard drifted near a nebula painted in hues of purple and gold, Laura gathered her senior officers for a quiet moment of reflection. "We've come a long way," she said, looking around at the faces of her crew. "But this is just the beginning. There's so much more to discover, and so much more to protect." Lieutenant Kevin Foster nodded, his voice steady. "Whatever happens next, we'll face it together." As the ship moved forward, leaving the nebula behind, Laura felt a sense of purpose she hadn't known before. Humanity wasn't just exploring the stars, it was finding its place among them. The journey ahead would be unpredictable, filled with both triumphs and trials. But one thing was certain: Earth's presence in the galaxy was undeniable. And for Laura, that thought was enough to keep her moving forward, into the unknown, toward a brighter future.